And so it looks like there's been a shooting in a gay club in Florida. It is the 12th of June 2016. I'm John LeBon, and I'm joined by my friend Sam down there in Sydney. I'm coming to you live from Brisbane, and in this little live hangout, we're going to discuss the latest major shooting event and if there are any hallmarks of classic media fakery. So before we get into all of that, I'll throw it to you there, Sam, and how are you on this lovely Sunday evening?
Very well. I've got a bit of a blocked nose, a cold, but apart from that, yeah, fine, thanks.
Excellent. And when did you first hear about this particular event?
Probably about 20 minutes ago, and the first thing I did, and this might be a bit rich for a lot of the listeners, but some of them might get what I'm talking about. The first thing I did was I went and checked the date of today, and it's the 12th in Australia, but it's the 11th probably on the other side of the world, and June being the 6 months of the what is it, May, June, 6. Well, for us actually, it's the 12th, so the 6 and 12 is 18, and then you add up the year, it's 2016. That's 18. So you got two 18s, and it's like, okay, 666, 666. But you know, that might have nothing to do with it. But that's the first thing I noticed.
Well, the event supposedly happened at 2 a.m. their time on the Sunday, so that'd still be the 12th or the 6th for them. So for people who are looking for the sixes, you've got your 12 and then your 6, so there's your three sixes. And we can get into all the numerology later on if you like. But before we start looking at some of the articles, it's probably worth prefacing this for people who haven't heard other people be skeptical of these events with the reasons why maybe we don't believe the news when they tell us that people are out there killing themselves or blowing themselves up. So, Sam, can you explain to listeners why, if you see on the news or you read in the newspaper that some random lone wolf dude decided to kill himself and many other people on, religious grounds or ideological grounds or these kinds of things, why is it that you don't necessarily immediately believe what you're being told?
Well, I prefer just to think of it from other people's point of view first, which is generally that the onus is on us to prove that something is not fake. But when you've looked at as many fake things as we probably have since Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing, and I mean, the list is endless, to save yourself time, I mean, it's not just time. You generally are very skeptical about any mass shooting, mass casualty event that you see, and you do tend to look at it from the other direction, that it's quite possibly fake until proven otherwise.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And obviously, if somebody has always watched the news and always believed it, then if they were to listen to us, they would want us to prove to them that the event is a hoax before they would believe anything other than it's real. But for anybody who's skeptical, they'd be sitting there going, well, it could be real, it could be fake. Let's look at the evidence. So let's do that. And the first article that I wanted to look at was from our old friends at the Daily Mail. So what I'll do is I'll screen share this one. And the listeners will have to forgive me if we're sounding a little bit croaky because it is late on a Sunday evening here. Now, is that one coming through to you there, Sam?
Yeah, I've got it.
Excellent. So this is from the Daily Mail, and the article, they've got these long article titles, the Daily Mail. It says, suspected Islamic extremist shoots dead at least 20 people at Florida gay club after bursting in wearing a suicide vest and taking hostages, injuring a further 42 before he is killed in shootout. So let's just go through some of the highlights of this one. He is a suspected Islamic extremist, and the club is called Pulse, which is interesting. We'll look at that in a moment. Shot more than 40 people, killing about 20, so not quite as accurate as old mate down there in Tasmania, Martin Bryant, but pretty accurate still, killing 20 out of 40. That's not too bad, really, from a kill shot ratio perspective. And apparently he took some party goers hostage as well before he was killed by police. They say he was in his 20s carrying a suspicious device, possibly a suicide vest, when he was attacked. And police used an explosive device to distract the gunman and rescue about 30 people who had been taken hostage. Now, Sam, just there, the idea of taking 30 people hostage, What do you think about what we've read from this article so far?
It seems like a bit of a job to keep that many people under control when I think he'd already shot some people before, or I'm not quite sure of the sequence of events. Just looking at this Christina Grimmy, I mean Grim, what sort of name is that? And then we've got a witness as well, whose name was John Alamo, like the Alamo shooting. So I don't know what's up with that. And then, sorry to bang on about the numerology and the occult aspect of it, but that's the bit I see first. We've got a club goer called Rob Rick, which is 1818 with the R's, the two R's, and that's another 666, which is a mirror of the date that it's happened, the 1818. And then we've got another person called Ricardo Negron. I don't know who's called. I've never heard of anyone with a name like Negron. It's got the nightclub sort of vibe to it, Negron. But it's noteworthy too that the club sold on March the 3rd, which is your 33, and it's got I won't go into the turnover, but it's got a turnover of $930,000 a year. Yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question. I just got a bit distracted.
No, that's all right. And some of the listeners might be wondering, where did you get that sale date for the club? So we'll look into that in a moment. Now, just on this Christina Grimmy, who was apparently shot dead nearby 4 miles away a few days ago. I've never heard of her, and I don't watch The Voice, so this is all news to me. I learned about her death by reading this article. Christina Grimmy, never heard of her, but there you go. So yeah, we've got the official story here at the moment. Obviously, these stories always change, a few hours later. But official story is someone shoots more than 40 people, kills about 20, has about 30 people hostage. Then the police use some kind of explosive device, maybe a flash grenade or something, Sydney siege style, and then they kill him and they save the 30 hostages, all of a Saturday morning at a gay club in Florida. So those are the main details I've got so far. Sorry, mate, what's that?
Sorry. It's interesting that to take a leaf out of Russian Vid's book, the club is in South Orange, orange being the only color that adds to 33. And the owner is a guy called Scott Reeder, and his history seems to be in, running clubs, but also being a creative director. He also runs Airwave Technologies, which is just like an audio company. So if anyone's able to set up a whole lot of bangs and crashes and lights and bullshit, I think Scott might be up to the job.
I'll tell you what, I don't know why it's me screen sharing. You should be screen sharing this stuff. Make sure you've got those articles ready. We'll screen share them in a moment. But just before we do, let's have a look at this photo. Now, this was the first photo that I saw of the event, and it looks very Boston Hoaxathon-like. We've got the blood on the legs, and to their credit, though, at least this blood looks kind of more realistic. Some of that Boston bombings blood was far too bright red, but this looks a bit more realistic, don't you think?
Sorry, I was just looking at an article.
That's all right.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd get that blood on you. I mean, I suppose if someone beside you got shot, you might get splattered like that. But she doesn't seem to have too much trouble standing around with her legs covered in blood. I mean, she might have been helping someone,
Yeah, what I'm saying is at least the color looks more right. I think the way that it still looks dodgy as because that's far too faint there. So it kind of looks like a very dodgy job. But at least they've got the color right this time, which I think is a decent start.
Yeah.
And someone just sitting on the ground, and you have to wonder. I mean, if you've got 40 people shot in a club, they said there's about 100 people in the club. How did no one get footage from inside the club? I mean, they might release some dodgy stuff like they did with the what was it, the Bataclan shootings, where they released like one video from inside later on. So this stuff might come out later on. But I mean, if you can get a photo of this, how come you can't get a photo of real carnage? You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially seeing there'd be a couple of people that'd have their might even be filming each other anyhow. So you think there might be one where it goes from sort of like selfie videos to like dropping it on the floor or something like that. But maybe they haven't had time to upload it. I don't want to sound like the gatekeeper, but it's just trying to make excuses for these people where possible.
Well, that's it, man. We're trying to have a look at this objectively, real or hoax. And of course, we can only go by what they give us, you know what I mean? So we couldn't prove 100% that it was real just with their photos, and we can't prove 100% it's fake. All we can do is just kind of go by what they give us. And if you look at these photos here, you've got your classic, I mean, what's this supposed to be? CPR? Kind of looks like that. I mean, is that meant to be, is that meant to be a body there, like with just a shoe hanging there?
Oh, what the hell? Yeah. And you
That's
think
meant to
those
be like,
medics would have like a few more boxes around them, you know, because they bring in those boxes to giving people shots and trying to give them air, and they got all sorts of contraptions they put around people like that.
and then again, just like the Boston Hoaxathon, you've got the Good Samaritans performing some kind of first aid or something here, and looks like these guys have already got their makeshift body bag going. And you've got ooh, a very lovely looking young lass in the background there. How do you like that one? Not bad at all. And we'll keep going through. Now they have to put in that the Daily Mail are they love doing this. There's always a photo of the crying woman, and it says here, distraught, a woman sits outside the nightclub following the mass shooting, and
Well,
you know,
it's noteworthy that she's wearing black and white, but that's not a big deal. But the thing is that animal print is distinctively used as it's one of the monarch archetypes in monarch programmings, and we see it through all the hoaxes. Is the animal print, but I mean we can't hold that against her. But
yeah. Well, I mean,
just
yeah, you make a good point. Like it is, this does seem to come up a lot. The old animal print top. But I mean, the point here is though, this photo looks like it's like the morning after when the sun's come back up, and so
what the
they don't tell
hell?
us who she is. They don't tell us what relevance she has to it. She's just a woman who looks unhappy. You know what I mean? And what gets me with these things is taking aside the numbers, taking aside the colors and the patterns. Just even if this was a real story, the fact that they could put this photo here and people would just accept that it's a photo that's related to the event. That there's no way of inferring that the two have anything to do with each other. This is just some photo of some woman. But I mean, they even say here, a woman sits outside the nightclub following the mass shooting.
Yeah, but
That's all it is. It's just a woman.
look at the I'm sorry to bring it back to this Masonic stuff, but in the foreground you've got the blue and red, and then in the background you've got another couple with their blue and red, which is a distinctive Masonic color combination. But yeah, roll on.
Yeah, let's have a look. So then they have to get in the photos of the police or the SWAT teams or whatever they are, decked out in their full tactical gear, submachine guns. They have to do this, and we'll look at this on the New York Times as well. That's their leading photo with the police, and it's very, again, even if this was a real event, look at how they're conditioning the masses just to accept this crap. Who are these? Look how they're dressed, man. There were people getting sent to Afghanistan 15 years ago who weren't dressed like this.
No, and that's the reason why the police deliberately bungled the fake Sydney siege event so that it could be used as a pretext to make the public comfortable with seeing the military handle the next event.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And for those who aren't aware, Sam and myself and a few others actually, we did a 1-year hoax anniversary for the Sydney siege and looked at that event in a fair bit of depth. And it was a lot of fun, Sam. Tonight probably won't be quite as fun because it is after 11 p.m. here and it's almost bedtime. I was actually on my way to bed when I saw this story and I was like, oh, I'll take a closer look, and here we are. But anyway, we've got the target in the background there, and I mean, look at this guy. Look at this. Even if you think that this gay club shooting is real, how do you feel about people like this walking around enforcing the law in your country, Sam?
Oh, in the old, well, not too long ago in Australia, they'd have 6 detectives turn up and just sneak around, give them a few shots, you know. So it's overkill. It's funny you got Target in the background, and they're the people that have been pushing the gay toilet thing against the or the tranny toilet thing against public, you know, what the public want. And then there's also a 7-Eleven being featured too in this story. 7-Eleven is I think they're fairly dodgy. They'd be like the Starbucks always turning up in these hoax events.
Yeah, well, you make a good point about the connection to the gay thing with Trump and all of that. So we'll make sure we talk about that later on in this broadcast as well. Now, Next photo, and it's from a bit further away. You've got a whole bunch of police and FBI, and again, not any real carnage. I mean, some of this stuff looks like it could just as easily be television, trucks or what have you, rather than anybody there to deal with genuine, victims of crime or what have you. And we see this a lot, don't we, Sam? Where it's almost like there are more professionals there to cover the event than there are people to save people's lives.
Yeah, and they don't seem to. I mean, maybe they've got a crap load of people, and these are the guys that stand around. But these guys don't seem to be very busy doing much. It's funny, that news truck. Is that a news truck there with the aerial on it?
Well,
And
it
instead of
says
saying
City of
CES
Orlando, so I can't work out if
yeah,
that's some kind of council van or I mean, I don't know.
yeah, and you got your Church Christ in the background with the CC33, but whatever.
Yeah, well, let's move on to our friends at the New York Times, and this one is entitled "Shooting at Orlando Gay Nightclub Kills About 20 Police Say." And yep, there you go. That's the same photo, and that's the one that they led with. About 20 people killed. Police classify the attack as a terror incident. They set up a hotline for tips. I mean, what do you need a hotline? They said the guy's dead. They said he was a lone wolf. What do you need a hotline for? What do you think? All right, anyway, yeah, let's move on. So 5 a.m., so it definitely happened on the Sunday morning, and they had a shootout. And they're searching the club for other explosives that he might have planted during his assault. Chief Mina, blah, blah, blah. Rescued about 30 people, so nothing too revelatory there. Now, here's another photo from the nighttime. And again, we don't really see anything in the photo, do we?
No, not a whole lot.
The survivors escaped under the cover of what police called 2 discretionary explosives. Yeah, that's another thing too, Sam. When did it become, like, do you know, you're a bit older than I am, when did it become okay for the police to throw discretionary explosives or flash grenades into a civilian area? Like, at some point in time, that was introduced. Is that a recent thing, this idea that, oh yeah, we're going to save some lives, we're just going to throw some explosive devices and hopefully it all works out better overall? Is that a new thing? Have they been doing that for a long time?
Oh, the first time I heard of it was Sydney Siege in the Lint Cafe, and I never knew about it before that. But I think it's probably just to beef up the visual effect for the media rather than anything else, because as people are trained to just be stealthy and find the target and shoot them once or twice, and that's kind of it. But you saw in Sydney Siege they fired like, wasn't more than like 30 or 40 shots. So I don't even know what they would have even been pointing at. Why would you shoot unless you're pointing at the person? And if you'd shot them once or twice, you're trained for it to have been a kill shot, so you wouldn't need to keep on shooting. It's funny in Sydney Siege, I don't want to get distracted, but you see people the cops came in opposing entrances. They're more or less firing towards each other.
Yeah, I get what you mean. And with the Sydney Siege, I agree with you about it's all the visual effects for the cameras. What I'm kind of getting at here, though, is let's just say this is all real. At what point, I mean, obviously they're beefing up the police to be even more well decked out than the military was not so long ago. Like, anyone with a brain can see that. But let's look at the story here. They're throwing discretionary explosives. Let's just call them flash grenades for the sake of argument. When did they actually become okay as like an operating procedure in any event, even if it is like a hostage event? Obviously, it's been in movies for a long time, but when were the police, either in our country or in the US, when was it okay for them to start using that, that kind of tactic or those kinds of weapons around civilians in this kind of situation? At some point, that was a new thing. Is it a relatively new thing, or did they start doing this years ago? I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't say.
Like, I've heard that police are trained that they're not allowed to shoot for the legs. They have to shoot, if they're shooting their firearms, at the torso. And one of the reasons is because there's a risk to bystanders. If you shoot for the legs, you might miss, and the bullet can ricochet and kill people, right? So
Yeah,
there's this idea of they've got a duty of care to the civilians. Even if you want to stop a bad guy, you're meant to have a duty of care to the civilians who are around. Throwing these...
I've always, sorry, go ahead.
There you go.
I've always wondered that myself, and I know Victoria Police over the last 20 years seem to have a habit of just unholstering their guns and basically emptying their revolvers into the people, and they did that. They seem to do that without exception, and there would be a lot of opportunities where there were no people around, where you could take leg shots and whatever, but because they don't do that, they always take head and torso shots. The only explanation I came up with was that it's to draw a line with the public, basically saying that if we're going to shoot, you're going to die, and you won't be walking around with any hero scars on your legs about how you stood up to the police and lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, let's move on to this next part then. It says here, Orlando Regional Medical Center was placed on lockdown after receiving the first of the victims. Only essential workers are being allowed access into the building, the hospital said in a statement. Out of an abundance of caution, Arnold Palmer Hospital and Winnie Palmer Hospital have also been placed on lockdown, the statement added. So what they're saying there is that there's 3 hospitals nearby that are receiving the victims of this event, and they've all been placed on lockdown. Now, one of the questions that you hear the normies or the noobs posing is, well, if this was staged, or if something like this was staged in any way, how could you get away with it? And one of the obvious answers is, well, who is going to stop you, especially when the areas that are involved, whether it's the scene or the nearby hospitals, you can place them on lockdown and minimize the number of people who are around, Sam.
Yeah, because there's so many casualties in this one. The crew that they'd be using to do the whole psyop would be that big that they just they can't keep such a I don't know, it could spill out. People could find out. People could rush in out of concern to try and help and see that it's bullshit. So I guess they have to lock the whole hospital down. Whereas other events, they probably just have a skeleton crew of crisis actors that just get wheeled to one particular room. And literally the other people in the hospital have no idea whatsoever. They could be a room away from them and they would die never knowing that it was bullshit on the other side of the wall. So that's my guess. That's why they've shut the whole hospital down.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be hard, like you said, to compartmentalize the whole thing. And the people who aren't involved don't get to see a single thing. It says here, and I should have brought up a CNN tab because CNN are always gold for these kinds of things. One mother told CNN, a girlfriend of my son called and said he got shot. He got shot and she was crying. She said she could not find her son or even get information on where he had been taken. Some of the victims had been transferred to other hospitals because this hospital was full, she said outside Orlando Regional Medical Center. The club, which calls itself Orlando's Latin Hotspot, hosts an upscale Latin Saturdays party on Saturday night with 3 DJs and a midnight show. So how do you like this one? It's not just a gay club that's been shot up, it's a Latin gay club. So before we went to air, you were saying you think this might be used to spin it into the whole Trump circus thing. Well, there you go. You've got double the Trump fun. You've got the gay agenda and the Latino agenda in one fell swoop.
That's right. I don't think we can elaborate much on that. But it just makes you wonder. Like, I just think about Trump is, I can never work out if to what extent the guy is of the order, like, I just can't place it how this is all going to pan out. Like if he's going to take the fall or if he's going to do an Obama and get in and just nothing will change, or I just can't work it out because this has been planned way in advance and it relates to Trump. So, or maybe they rushed it, but unlikely. Do you see what I'm saying? That correlates so well to him. It could have been planned a year ago before Trump was even running. But it
I do wonder
Trump.
How far ahead do they plan these events and, things like Trump running or what have you. I actually went back maybe a week or so ago and just watched a whole bunch of videos of Trump on like late night TV. from decades ago. Like there's some that are there from more than 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure. And you can watch him. In fact, there's one from even 20 years ago, I reckon. And he was on, what's the name of that guy? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. He was on these late night talk shows, whatever. And you do wonder, when did he know he was going to be running for president? It's fascinating.
No,
the chances are.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say the chances are that you and I will never get to know how far ahead these things are planned, if we're being honest.
No, and you think that whoever it is has put so much work into all this bullshit with ISIS and all this bullshit with all these psyops. You honestly reckon they're going to let a guy even have the beginnings of a campaign that could disrupt what they're doing without tapping him on the shoulder and steering him away from it, saying, you know, it's not going to work, buddy. So that's what makes me think that he has to steer out of this thing at some point, and he's not going to be assassinated. No, there's one person that could not live on a desert island, you know, by himself in a pair of sunglasses and not have the company and the adoration of people and the attention. It's Donald Trump. That would be the most miserable sight in the world. That guy sitting in a pair of sunglasses with the facelift, you know, staring out to sea with a coconut in his hand, you know. So that's not going to happen. So he's either going to go bland once he gets in, or he's going to bow out, or he's going to be terminated by his own party or whatever. They'll conspire against him, and it'll piss all the patriots off, the constitutionalists off, and the Christians off. So much so that it'll give Hillary a pretext to wheel out the cops even more when she actually gets into power.
But be honest here, Sam. Have you been paying more attention to this presidential election circus than you expected to because of Trump?
Fucking oath I have.
Yeah, so have I. It's a guilty little pleasure of mine. I thought I would pay no attention, and up until about, I don't know, maybe a month ago, I'm not sure, I wasn't paying any attention at all. And I heard people talk about Trump this and Clinton that and Bush this, and I just didn't make difference to me. And then all of a sudden, I watched a Trump interview with somebody, and I was like, hey, this is actually pretty interesting. And next thing you know, I'm paying attention, even though I know it's all a circus, even though I know that these are all puppets. They might as well be paid actors. They might even be paid actors. I don't know. I'm still paying attention to it. And that's the magic that these people have, that even cynics like you and me, we're like, oh, yeah, we'll listen to what this guy has to say. So if even you and me will listen to these clowns, then the average sleeper out there, they're lapping this shit up. Now, what we'll do is we'll just play one video from our friends here at CNN, Anderson Cooper's own CNN. And I'm pretty sure it is on the public record that Anderson Cooper did his an internship at the CIA. I'm pretty sure that is public knowledge on the public record. I'll see if I can double check that. But in the meantime, let's check out this clip.
Can I just interrupt just one thing? I know I've been going off on this esoteric bent, and that's me. I put pulse into gematria calculator, and the top result, my friend, is Mark of the Beast. And in English gematria, the top result happens to be 666. So whatever.
Yeah, interesting little coincidence. Well, we'll talk more about the esoteric stuff in a moment, but just before we do, let's check out our friends over at CNN. Is this one coming through to you clear?
Hold on.
This morning, we had an officer working at Pulse nightclub who responded to shots fired. Our officer engaged in a gun battle with that suspect. The suspect at some point went back inside the club where more shots were fired. This did turn into a hostage situation. From there, obviously multiple officers from various agencies responded. SWAT team responded at approximately 0500 hours this morning. The decision was made to rescue hostages that were in there. Our SWAT officers exchanged gunfire with the suspect. The suspect is dead. He appeared to be carrying a rifle, an assault type rifle, and a handgun, and had some type of device on him. That's what we're doing right now, checking the area for devices. There are multiple people that are dead inside. I don't want to give anyone a number right now, but multiple people are dead inside Pulse nightclub, and at least 42 people have been transported to various hospitals around. So do not have an exact count. Obviously, our condolences go out to the friends and family. We're going to continue to work with the FBI and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the Orange County Sheriff's Office on this joint investigation. About 42 taken to 3 area hospitals and approximately 20.
All right, so I've got a couple of things to say about that, but before I fire away, Sam, what did you notice in that little clip from our friends at CNN?
Not much.
No? Did you notice that the police rocked up in a ute, a utility vehicle, to take away one of the injured? Did you see that part?
Nah, because I was on a another tab trying to find out more about this shit. Sorry, I missed it.
No, that's all right. I bet some of the people in the live chat would have seen this. There was a couple of very amusing things. I'll just see if there it is. Check this out, right? They're loading this guy in to a ute, and you've got your police officer up there. Yep, chuck him in here, boys. Yep, that's the way. We've got the old 4x4. Jump in, fellas.
44 is the kill number too.
Just still got the door open. This is ridiculous. Now, you'll also notice that the people that they're walking past, like you've got your camera here, it'll scan to one in a moment. There was at least 2. Here's another one. These guys are walking past the camera that's sat there. Now, think about this logistically. You've got police and everything on one side. You've got police and everything on the other side. So where the hell are these people walking from, and where are they walking to? It just doesn't make any sense at all. This is just like the Sydney siege, this stuff.
Yeah, look how far away the cars are staged way in the distance there, and you've got this injured guy. Like, so the guy's at the scene, or are the cops at the scene?
Exactly. That's exactly the point I'm making. Where are these people based? Are they based where the event happened, or are they waiting for these guys to walk their mates down there? This is just this video. We should have started with this video because this is a load of nonsense. How ridiculous. Now, what else has CNN got for us? 20 people, at least 42 transported for medical treatment. It doesn't mention in the article that some of them are transported via a utility vehicle with the police on the back. That's all right. It's all just part of the show these days. 9 officers involved in the shootout. 1 suffered an eye injury when a bullet struck his Kevlar helmet. Well, gee, isn't it a good thing, Sam, that they're wearing these Kevlar helmets now? Isn't that a good thing? Yeah. He only got an eye injury. He could have been dead if not for his Kevlar helmet. So hopefully they'll start issuing the Kevlar helmets as a regular issue to all police from this point forward.
I reckon we should all be given a Kevlar helmet when we get our vaccination. Children. Yeah.
Oh man, I was this close to making a video today. They're coming out now with these articles. Did you see that one about the mum whose child got chicken pox here in Queensland? And then, Did you see that one? Oh man, because I made a few. I made a video a few months ago. In fact, I made a few videos a few months ago trying to explain to people Australia has gone that crazy that now they're vaccinating for chicken pox. And I was like, can't you guys see that everything the Australian Medical Association is saying, it's all lies? Look at their own statistics. They're lying. Like, you can prove it with their own stats. They're lying. And here we are, 6 months later, and now they've got the full-on fear campaign of, if you don't vaccinate your children against chicken pox, you're an idiot. And this is the kind of stuff they're coming out with. So I don't want to get psyched.
PK just did a video tonight about the winter flu vaccine that's being recommended for children under 5. And there's been a national recall of it because all these kids have been just completely flipping out over it. And one's in a coma right now from it. And they call it a rogue batch. So they're reserving the right to wheel out the same shit, pretending it's different, and give it another shot.
Yeah, they're quick off the mark. Well, yeah, we'll have to...
Sorry, I've got a blocked nose, man. That's why I sound like a total freak. But you know,
no, you're right, mate. That's fine. I'm just going through this article here, and all this nonsense. Apparently, a survivor got home and posted to his Facebook page, and apparently it was the hottest gay club in the area. So it was a hot gay club and a hot Latino club. I'll tell you what, if you were a hot Latino gay guy, this would be the place to be, wouldn't it? And
totally.
Anyway, where are we? Something I've never heard before, called 9/11. Oh, he was at the Dunkin' Donuts. They didn't let nobody in or out. The SWAT team is inside there. Hospital's on lockdown. And yeah, well, I'll tell you what, we've looked at the New York Times, we've looked at CNN, we've looked at the Daily Mail. They're usually the three best ones to go to. The Daily Mail and CNN especially are the two best. New York Times is handy as well. But based on what I've seen so far, Sam, I have to say that this one is looking very hoaxy. What say you?
Yeah, it does. And as with these things, tomorrow, sorry, are you there?
Yeah, mate, I'm listening.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's always the next day that they come out with the lots of good photos. So tomorrow we'll have like a shitload of stuff to look at.
Yeah, and look, the thing is, we're not really doing this video to try and convince the average sleeper that this event was fake, right? Because you can't go from believing the news in one video. Even if we could show that this was absolutely fake, even if we could, no one's going to go from believing the news to disbelieving the news in one show. It just doesn't work like that, does it? And it takes a long time.
No way. If I don't ever belittle people for not knowing this stuff, because if I think back 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I didn't have a fucking clue, and it was a long road. I remember skipping past PK's videos going, what the hell is this? About Boston bombing. And it just, I never had a aha moment that I can remember, but slowly I got the message. And the difference between me and maybe someone's waking up today, sorry about the expression waking up, is that I had a willingness to see what the story was, to investigate people's claims that these things might be fake. But some people don't have that that willingness to see. They reject it. They reject the possibility of it, and people know all the different reasons why.
Yeah, and I mean, it'd be a huge thing for someone to suddenly realize that the people they thought they could trust, such as the news organizations and the government, are actually the least trustworthy people that they deal with in their everyday life. That's a huge paradigm change. And so I don't really think it's the job of people like you and me, Sam, to wake people up, because it's not anyone's job. No one can do this. People really have to do it themselves. And so if somebody is inclined to challenge their beliefs, then they might come across material which might make them question things, and then slowly they'll start to deprogram. But most people are either not inclined to challenge their beliefs, or even when they are, they just never happen to click on that video or click on that blog or listen to that person in line at the fish and chip shop or whatever the case may be, that makes them question, can you actually trust the news? And so do you remember it was about 12 or 18 months ago, any one of these shooting events, and within a few hours, there was a dozen YouTube channels that had already covered it. Do you remember back then? And I think since then, the baby hoaxes have really sort of lost a lot of their, how do I put this? It's not as enticing now for YouTubers to even cover these hoax events, because a lot of people realize now this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it is. It is. I will say that people this year are much more receptive to this kind of talk that we're doing than they were a year ago. People used to ridicule or laugh at me when I used to talk to them about it. And trust me, when I'm in public, I steer every conversation. I don't know why it is. It winds up on this stuff. And people this year, just in the last couple of months, they're wide open to this shit. I don't know what it is, but people are waking up to it, Like we had a stabbing or a shooting like 2 days ago in the Westfield shopping center. And I was talking to a guy, and he said, yeah, I was wondering that, because there's always these shootings at Westfield. And Westfield is owned by Frank Lowy, who was complicit possibly in the 9/11 incident with Silverstein and that. So people are starting to see through the bullshit, I'm not too sure why it is, but that's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, when you say that people are more open to it, though, like which people are you talking about? Just randoms who you meet, or people in your life?
I chat to guys that work at the train station, to security guards, to anyone who's just standing around. Yeah, they're basically people I don't know at all. just like when I'm out in the street, you know, kind of find myself just talking to people.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I guess if I'm being honest, man, I haven't been speaking to random people about any of these sorts of topics as much, you know, for the last few months as I probably did, say, last year. Like last year, I made a point to keep on just asking people simple questions, like not necessarily about shooting hoaxes, but just simple things about the media. Do you think they like? Can you trust them? Whatever I was feeling like at the time, like even just going through the checkout at a shopping center, just sort of asking a question. But for whatever reason, I've just found myself less inclined to even bother. And I think one of the reasons for that is probably because the further you get down the line of questioning things that you thought you could just take for granted, the more distant that you feel from the average person, to the point where it's almost like what am I going to get from asking this person their opinion on this? That like the best case scenario is like a 1 in a million chance that they're on the same little path as I am, but far more likely they're.
No, you got to develop your chops though. Go ahead, finish up, because I want to.
Like what I'm saying is,
make a point.
I think it starts off when you first start learning about this stuff. It almost starts off like who else knows, and you want to. It's almost like a social experiment that everyone plays when they first learn this. Like, well, will people discuss this? Will they talk about it? And then you first get hit with those. You know, a lot of people sort of stonewall you at first. They can't believe it, even question if they think Sydney Siege is real or whatever. And it's almost like when you first learn about this, you want to see how far you can talk to people about these topics. You know what I mean? But after a while, you build up a bit of a knowledge base about how people work, and you can almost sort of read their first response to any question. You only have to ask them like one simple question about just about anything, and you get a read on them really quick, to the point where it's almost there's nothing to gain from talking to the average person about this stuff because they are so well programmed. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but I think it's like boxing or something like that. If you became a trained boxer, you see a bar fight, it's like in slow motion to you. And when you see those chops coming, those hits coming from that person, you not should, but I have a set of well-rehearsed responses to all those things. And these days, like a lot of people say, oh, don't, break up friendships, or don't, you got to tease it out slowly and bring people around. Recently, I just give people the 9 yards. I just give it to them and just hammer them with it, but not in a fast talking way. I shame them sometimes. I cajole them. I have analogies. I appeal to their sense of morality and their social duty and stuff like that. And I find that works as consistently as they present in patterns themselves to you when they talk.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy, right? Like the trained boxer can see bar fights in slow motion. That's a good analogy, because to me it's almost like once you learn enough of this stuff, why would you want to get involved in a fight with someone about this? Not a fight as in a literal fight, but just running this analogy a bit further. It's like, yeah, I know all of this stuff now really well. I know all of the arguments on one side and on the other side. I know the programmed responses. I used to be programmed. I've studied the programming now. I understand how they try and program people. Like, I kind of know exactly how the conversation's going to go. And yeah, I can use set tactics to sort of lead the conversation in a way. But what's the best I can achieve, man? If I'm talking to a random person who, even if they're a little bit skeptical of the news and the government, has never really looked at these shooting hoaxes and come to understand just how blatant the hoaxes are, what am I really going to achieve here? What's the best I can hope to achieve? That they walk away thinking, oh yeah, maybe the news is lying. I want to go home and look into that. And then they jump on YouTube and watch some videos about it. I mean, like, if that's the best case scenario, is it really worth trying in the first place?
Yeah, it is, because it's like throwing a stone through the first window. You're basically giving some social and moral license to, just by virtue of entertaining the possibility that they're fake. And I've spoken to people about certain hoaxes, and they go, yeah, I've heard someone else mention that. I'm like, are you serious? Someone else mentioned that to you? And then I'm the second person in line, just starting to like tear it apart a little bit further. And that people say, oh, what do you care about? You're just talking, and talk's cheap. Mate, the media is a massive industry that runs on nothing more than the exchange of information. So it's valuable in a lot of ways. So I don't discount that whatsoever. And what you're saying before, it's a little bit of ego from my point of view, mixed with like thinking I should tell these people. And it's like, well, with one hand, I'm going to try and wake you up a little bit for your own good, and I'll be polite. I'm going to be offhand and dismissive. Then I'm going to try and give you a spanking for it.
Do you think there's also an element of, I'm not saying this is the case with you because you've spent a lot of time looking into these things, but I think a lot of people when they first start learning about, especially the baby hoaxes, like the shooting hoaxes or the ISIS death hoaxes or the plane disappearing hoaxes, these like real baby hoax sort of things. Do you think there's an element of when people learn about them, they want to convince others because they're still not really convinced themselves? Like until they can convince those around them, they've still got that doubt in their mind. Whereas once you've been around this for long enough, you don't have to convince anyone because you know, like you just know.
Well, it's like Christians wanting to spread the good word, or people that go to the gym say, you got on Prozac, saying, yeah, you got to get on Prozac, man, it rocks, you know. It's like people like to spread what they're into, you know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, I want to read out a few comments from the live chat. We've got more than 30 watching live, actually, which is a pleasant surprise. So thanks to everyone for coming out. And there was a couple that I saw that I liked. This one's from someone called Bones420USA. He says, within the last week, there's been multiple mass shootings in Chicago, but those get no airtime because they actually happened and it was in a highly restricted area for guns. And then that's replied to by Jordan Rains, who says only staged shootings make national news. And I guess because you and I aren't trying to convince any of the sleeple about this event, we can probably be a bit more liberal in how we speak now. This to me is clearly a fake event, just working from inference, just using inductive logic here, based on what we've seen in the past, based on certain patterns that I've recognized in this event that match other events, and just starting from the general standpoint of if something really happened, why are they reporting it like this when we know there's so many other things that they don't report? This one just fits their bill far too well. Based purely on circumstantial evidence, this one to me is clearly a hoax. And Jordan Rains is sort of making that point. Sam, what do you think about this idea that there's someone like you and me, we can just read these articles and it makes perfect sense to just assume it's a hoax until proven real?
Yeah, and we've got some finer tools to work with. You know, like when someone, I know I'm sounding like I'm blowing smoke up my own ass, but whatever. If you're a farmer that's been buying cattle for 20 years and you go to market and you sit up on the edge of the railing, you might be able to spot the cows that you might be interested in by just the way the sun shines off their coat or something, you know. Like people get weird ways of doing things when they've been doing things for a while, you know. Like that's all I can say about that, you know. Like it's a language that other people wouldn't understand. People say you're in 33 this and 66 that, and Masonic black and white shirts on that guy being carried down the street. But it's nonsense until you understand the language in the way that, you know, I could start speaking French to someone who'd never been educated and they say, you're just making funny sounds with your mouth, or to wonder you all can understand what you're saying to each other. It sounds like gobbledygook to me. So that's all I reckon.
Yeah, it is. It's esoteric knowledge, and I would make the analogy to people. It's like, suppose you go to the movies every week and you always take a friend with you, and every week you have to explain to your friend, can't you see how he just jumped over that building? Like, that's impossible. Like, that, this is a fictional movie. This is not real. And every week your friend is like, what do you mean it's not real? It's on the screen. How could this not be real? And to me, that's how it is with the news at this point. It's like, it's on your screen, you're looking at images and you're listening to sounds that have been put there to make your brain behave in a certain way. Once you see through it, that's it. Like, you see through it now. It's that simple. It doesn't mean that everything on the TV is fake. What it means is that anything on the TV could be fake. So then you have to start looking at it for what it is. And if you start seeing that there's no actual evidence of death, but you're being told that there's 20 dead people, then you think, why are they telling me something but not showing me? Or if they tell you that 40 people were shot, but they're not showing you anyone who's being shot, at best they're showing somebody that looks like they might have a little bit of blood coming from their leg. It's like, if they're telling me something but they can't even show me anything that matches with it. Why is that? And then you start looking at the broader picture here. Look at the agenda at play with this one. It's in a gay club, and it's in a Latino area. There's two very powerful angles for the media to use, especially at this stage in their cycle, like their political circus cycle. And you start to build up these circumstantial evidence to the point where it's like, well, this could be a real event, but we've seen no evidence that it's real. The people who are telling us that it's real have given us no evidence. There's a clear benefit in terms of their overall agenda. Why would anyone who knows that they could be getting lied to assume they're not being lied to? You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and you know what, these shootings, when you said, oh, the agenda, and you need to know the political things behind it and the esoteric stuff behind it, you need to know all that to understand what we're saying, because you could take me to a movie the last 5 minutes and I could see the conclusion. It's not like I turn around and say, well, that's good, I didn't need to see the whole movie because I got the end. End is meaningless without seeing the story leading up to it. If we walked into a maths class and we started at chapter 22 instead of chapter 21, you couldn't possibly understand what was going on without having studied all the bits that made sense of what you're looking at.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. That's a really good analogy. You wouldn't just watch the 5-minute segment on the news and assume that you've been given enough information to determine that what you're being told is definitely real, right? And the burden of proof is on them making the claim. Now, someone in the live chat asked, are you guys, I'm just paraphrasing here, they asked something like, are you guys saying that nobody ever loses their mind and kills people? Now, I can't speak for you, Sam, but for me, no, I'm not suggesting that. For all I know, people really do decide today is going to be the day where they take a gun and kill a whole bunch of random people. To me, that's definitely possible. But does it actually happen? And if people are being honest with themselves, they've never seen that happen with their own eyes. They've never even known anyone who has prepared to do such a thing. They've got no evidence. They've got no first-hand experience in any way of anyone being even close to that crazy and that well thought out that they could go ahead and do something like this. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. But the only people who are telling you that it does happen are the news media and the government. And I think this is a big part of it, is people who still believe that there's a difference between the news media and the government, they're susceptible to believing anything. But once you understand the news media and the government are two sides of the same coin, then you can see there's a vested interest in this, in making you believe that there are all of these bad guys out there who at a moment's notice can just flip and start killing people, because then, of course, you need their protection. And, of course, when you need their protection...
But hold on. Sorry, in all fairness, those shootings that you hear about in Chicago over some weekends, they are exactly that, I imagine, where someone loses it and thinks, fuck these guys, whatever, and goes and does shoot a whole bunch of people. But what I hear about on the news, as one of the guys in the chat said, and two, it's probably for quite a passionate reason why they got that pissed off, you know. Not to say that justifies it, but, you know, but it's, well, I wanted to mention something. When people say, oh, you know, like Sydney Siege or something might have been a guy who was wound up by the authorities and let loose. No, not possible, because you don't know who's going to be in that cafe at that time or wherever they decide to flip out when they've let them walk down the street. You know, that's the center of the city. There could be some really important, when I say important for the government, people there, or could be their daughter or their niece, cousin, or, and you know what, if someone died that was really close, just like a top politician, and their mad cousin found out, they say, and then they found out you guys let that happen and my cousin died, then you've got a recipe for fucking disaster, because they're going to leverage off their own high profile to blow the whole thing apart publicly, and they may take it into their hands to avenge the situation, and that doesn't happen.
Well, with the shootings, same places like Chicago or Detroit or what have you, my understanding is that oftentimes these shootings are people who are known to each other, or at least known by association to each other. They're generally not just dudes saying, that's it, today I'm going out, killing as many people as I can, right? These sort of massacres that we hear about, right? Absolutely. Whereas this event on the news that we're being told about today, this gay club shooting, the San Bernardino shooting not so long ago, and all the other fake shootings. We're told that people are deciding today, I'm going to go and kill a whole bunch of people I don't know for ideological reasons or for extremist motivations. And that's the distinction here. And like that person said in the chat earlier on, it's like, well, people do get shot and people do die every day and it doesn't get reported. These events do get reported. And why is that? Well, to me, it's obvious why, because this is another phony, fake show, scripted shooting. Look, I could be wrong. I could wake up in the morning and it could turn out, I could read another few articles, see some things that look like they're genuine casualties or genuine deaths, or I could find some other evidence that suggests to me that this was real. But it's very unlikely. And you get to a certain point where you realize that something like this, I mean, why did I hear about this event? It was being talked about on The Age, right? The Victorian newspaper, right? Why are Australians getting this at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night within a couple of hours of happening? Because it's a scripted event. The news doesn't exist to report on things as they actually happen for your benefit. And unless and until you understand what the mainstream media is there to do and who's really behind it, you'll never understand this. And that's why, say 12 or 18 months ago, if somebody came out with a video straight after an event saying it was a hoax, I would think, oh, that's the wrong thing to do. You're going to make us all look bad. You're going to make it look like we say things without double checking them. But the reality is, once you understand what the media is and what the government is, it makes perfect sense to assume that this stuff is fake, especially when the initial reporting that comes out, the initial photos, pictures, etc., fit the pattern that we've seen so many times. Another phony fake show, Sam.
But you see Russian vid stuff, and regardless, I'm not too keen on the biblical flat earth stuff. I don't know what the deal is with that. But as far as the hoaxes go, this shit's been going on since, like, I mean, as far back as you can dig. Like, all this stuff from the 80s, all through the 90s. But it's obviously revving up a lot now. But fuck, this has been around for ages.
Goes back a long way, Sam. We were talking about it, I think it was on that Sydney Hoaxiversary Roundtable, the bombings in Melbourne. I think it was like the 84 or 86 Melbourne bombings. And of course, in those supposed bombings, it was outside of a police station. And it's amazing how often the police are targeted in these, lone wolf attacks or what have you. And yeah, we went back and looked at the footage. And sure enough, it was even more obviously fake back then too, with some of their eyewitness testimony. Like back then, people didn't have the internet. You couldn't sort of pause footage, show that the actors are laughing, and like you couldn't take the piss out of it back then the way you can now. So I think it was even sloppier back then than it is now.
Yeah.
It just seems to be that now more people are recording it, more people are talking about it, and now there's a market for it. I mean, now if you're smart with how you do it, you can, if you cover this stuff all the time, like people were doing 12, 18 months ago, you can start to build up, a few thousand subscribers. And every now and then, I mean, I've never had a video go viral in the 18 months that I've been doing this, but some people with only a few hundred subscribers, they'll cover a fake event, put the word conspiracy in the title, it gets a couple 100,000 views. And you know what? I mean, I read somewhere, I don't know if you know about this, Sam, but I read somewhere that on average, a YouTuber can get something like $2 per 1,000 views of a video. So if you can get even one video to go viral every few months, I mean, there's a few $100s, you know what I mean, just by posting videos talking about these fake shootings. So there's a market there for it, and there's even a bit of pocket money to be made for people covering them, which is why I think that one of the reasons why it's become more common now. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, good. And also people's backlog of videos adds up too. So it's not just the money coming off the video you just made, it's the views going up from all the ones that you've done like 6 months ago, a year ago. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. People making money out of it. If it means they can not go to another job, they can dig instead.
Making money from it. The point I'm making is that because there is a profit motive there, I think that's one of the reasons why more people are covering them, say now, than they might have been a few years ago. And like I've made the point before too, that these shooting hoaxes, they're just baby hoaxes ultimately. Like at the end of the day, you look at that hoax busting community from like say 12, 18 months ago, and when it was at its peak, that had like hundreds of live viewers would watch those We'll Do It live shows. So they probably had say a couple thousand listeners each week, like proper listeners, because if you get 5,000 listeners to a show, it doesn't mean 5,000 people really listen. It usually means say between 1,000 and 2,000 people really listened. But still, that's a pretty sizable audience. Now, how many of those people who fully knew that Sandy Hook was fake, fully knew that Boston bombings was fake, how many of those people know about some of the bigger hoaxes, like the Holler hoax or NASA fakery, these things? It's only a small percentage of them. And even those aren't really big hoaxes compared to the bigger hoaxes, like, I mean, we can talk about them later if you want, but things like evolution or dinosaurs or whatever, these hoaxes, these shooting hoaxes, even though it's very hard for most people to accept that these things are hoaxes, of those people who do get over that hurdle, most don't get over the next hurdle anyway. So I don't really think these baby hoaxes, people exposing them, I don't really think it's a threat to the people who run the show anyway.
Yeah, right. No, I was just thinking how, like, people say, oh, things like Alex Jones is poison. It is, but he he woke me up, and then I woke up to him, you know. And I don't know what they think they're doing, because a lot of people go like onto the harder stuff, you know, after him. I'm not contradicting what you said about the bigger hoaxes, because that's a different line on the graph, you know. But it's like that guy, is it Jim Stone from Veterans Today? We put in like, mix in 15% lies or whatever with the truth, otherwise people wouldn't read it. Well, if your objective is a means to an end, you know, trying to wake people up, and that's, you know, they want sugar on their food or whatever, well, then they're going to have sugar on their food, and maybe they'll grow out of that later on down the track, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I'm trying to think
of who that guy was. I don't know if it was Jim Stone, because Jim Stone's a guy who does Jim Stone freelance. But I do remember that.
No, I'm sorry. The veterans.
No, but I know what you're talking about. There's a guy
Veterans
from
Today.
Veterans Today who actually came out and said that he puts in 15 or 20% of fake, because he has to do that to be allowed to write or be allowed to live or something like that. I can't remember. And I mean, I get what you're saying. Like these gatekeepers like Alex Jones or some of these other characters, that still, if they wake people up and those people go and do their own research, it can still be a good thing for them. And I get what you're saying, but I think, like, it's easy for us to be biased and to say, oh, well, you know, in your case, whether it's Alex Jones or someone else, they helped wake you up, or in my case, Jeffrey helped wake me up to certain things, or whatever the case may be. And sort of I went and progressed beyond that. But the point is that people like you and me, and many of the people listening to this, they're in the minority of people who, once they realized they'd been lied to, started to question other things as well. Whereas a lot of people, they can be lied to, find out they've been lied to about something, but everything else in their life remains the same. Nothing else changes, because they haven't worked out that they can be deceived and have been deceived. In general, it was just one specific thing, and their mind is still closed off to everything else. And I think that's where these gatekeepers are so effective, is they can cast a broad net and catch lots of people and say, look, we've got the truth. We've found out that they're lying about this event, or they're lying about this thing, or they're not telling you about this thing. And even though some of their people who hear this stuff will then move on and do their own research, the majority will get stuck right there at that gate. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. So they're kind of getting angry for you on your behalf, and they're taking the pace off your sort of spirit by sort of like drawing it into like a baseball glove and just catching it there, and then you just funnel your anger and attention into, say, the baby hoaxes and the shootings, and never get on to stuff in a way, perhaps.
That's definitely a big part of it. And man, you look at that hoax busting community before TransAsia happened, that thing was growing, getting big. Suppose TransAsia never happened, suppose this flat earth thing never happened, that hoax busting community could have grown to another 10 times bigger. But so long as all they did was bust every hoax as it happened, so what? What difference would it make? The vast majority of the people who were following that were, just like most of the people who follow all of these scenes, utter slacktivists. They'll sit there and they'll, you know, comment on videos or thumbs them up, or they'll post in live chats or whatever, and they'll tell themselves that they're doing something because they're, you know, speaking to their, you know, friends occasionally about certain things, and in their minds they're doing their bit, but really they're doing fuck all. They're doing nothing. And these shows are like their outlet. It's like their lightning rod, where they can feel like something's getting done because this community online thinks like them, but in reality nothing's getting done. And what are they talking about ultimately? The news is lying to you. Big deal. I mean, who are you going to hold accountable for that anyway? Do you know what I mean? Even if you've got tens of thousands of people to all get together, like in the middle of the city, and agree today we're going to go and catch and put on trial the people responsible. Who the hell are you putting on trial? Who? It's not one news organization that's lying. It's all of them. You see what I mean? It's not one reporter that's lying. They're just reading the script that was written by someone. It's the whole thing. All of this stuff is just propaganda, and it's all coming from the government / mainstream media. It's all coming from the state apparatchiks. You see? So what? All of this, waking each other up to the shooting hoaxes. Ultimately, where can that possibly go? Even if it gets big, where can it go?
No, well, fuck, it's not in human nature to do anything about it. When was there ever a conspiracy theory that was busted where the people took to the streets? I'm not aware of one. It's just a strange facet of human behavior exploited.
But let's say, like, if there are bigger things, like if people started to have a mass realization to the fact that, I'll just give you one example, that they didn't evolve from slime, right? They're not the product of millions of years of evolution, and now they're just highly intelligent chimps, but they were actually put here by something. That can have a profound effect on somebody's life to the point where they reconsider the work that they do and the things they consume and what they're actually trying to do with their lives, right? It doesn't always have that effect, but it can. And I think things like that can actually change people's behavior, like realizations that can change people's behavior. They're significant, they're profound. They could, I think, make a big difference. But shooting hoaxes, you find out that Sydney Siege was a hoax, which it totally was. So what? That doesn't affect the way that you live your life in any way. For most people, does it?
It changes the way I live mine. I can't, but I think those people that wake up to the non-evolution thing, and I don't know anything about this, I think a lot of them are religious people, Christians and Islamic people, and I don't know what the Jews think, but yeah, and they walk around with a bit of a buzz, got that glow, because they think, and I don't know if they're right or not, that we got put here, maybe even for a reason.
Yeah, and so
just on another note, I know. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, most people are raised to believe that they either believe in science and that they evolved from slime, or they have to be one of those kooky religious people who have all those weird views on so many social issues. And most people are raised to believe that we're more progressive then, right? And they believe in this crazy sky theory, heaven and hell. And so people are given these two options from a young age, and they truly believe those are their only two options. What I'm suggesting to you is that, and to anyone listening, is that suppose it was the case that we've been lied to about evolution, but it doesn't mean you have to become religious, and become a Christian or a Muslim or whatever. All you have to do is realize, hold on, there's a reason why we're here. We've been put here for a reason. There's something much bigger than us going on. We're not just highly evolved chimps. There's something very special about this existence. I think that, thousands of people waking up to that and trying to spread that message, that could potentially make a difference and would make a difference to many of those people's lives. But the same number of people knowing that Sydney Siege was a hoax or that Boston was a hoax, what difference can that make? Most of those people, it can't make a difference to most of the way that they live their life. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not sure if I'm articulating myself too well, but I'm trying to explain to you, I think waking up to one of these hoaxes can and will, for most people, change the way they see their whole life, and it'll change their behavior. And that's learning about things like evolution being a hoax. But the shooting hoaxes, most people can learn about that, and even if it's a big deal to them, it's not really going to change their behavior. In fact, most of these people watch TV.
Hopefully it's a stepping stone. I say hopefully, maybe you're asking too much of the event, It's good if they do wake up to it, they can be more cynical. I was just, when you're talking about the meaning of life before, I wonder if these occultists, these Satanists, these Masons know something that we don't know. Like it could be when you get way up the top there, they let you in on these methods and secrets where you can, like I was talking to a guy who's friends with Masons, right? And I met him up in the city, right? We walked around, looked at the architecture and showed me all sort of weird stuff. And he said that these Masons claim to be able to conjure some type of real audio inside their rooms. Maybe something you can see, something you can hear. I suppose it's like having a seance of sorts. But I wonder what else there is. Maybe there's something of great power that they know and can access that we just can't. And you hear those stories about, oh, you know, Robert Johnson went to the crossroads, blah, 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 or Bob Dylan came back, you know, 6 weeks later and he could play mad fingerstyle and his voice was completely different. It was just killing it. Maybe that's woodshedding, but maybe there's something you can tap into if you make the deal that gives you a real tangible power. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I have wondered about that before as well, actually. In fact, I'm wondering about that more and more and more because I'm becoming convinced that the people who are running the show, that they're pure evil by most people's standards. By you and my standards, they be evil, but in their mind, what they're doing is truly good because their God is Satan. It doesn't matter whether you and I believe in Satan or not. What matters is that they do, and what matters is that in their minds, what they're doing is the right thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And because they believe in Satan doesn't mean that God exists either. You know, like I've warmed to Christians more than ever before since I found out all this stuff, but I won't become a full-blown Christian just because that's all that's left on the table.
Yeah, exactly. I'm completely with you. And if like, suppose you woke up one day and everybody was either a Satanist or they were nothing, what would you be left to do? You know, especially if the Satanists were running the whole show.
I think I'd just go to the beach.
Yeah. Well, can you see on this screen here? I've got up my hoax hierarchy.
Yeah.
Now I've worked on this a bit more. This is an older version. There's actually now 6 levels on the hoax hierarchy. There used to be 5. But the point I've made to people in the past is, you've got these baby hoaxes down the bottom. You've got your Sandy Hook Boston bombings and your Batman shootings, and they were all connected, as you probably remember. And then you've got your ISIS serials, your Terror World Tour, and those you know, those beheadings. Do you remember how there was that beheading serial show that they were doing, where each guy who was getting beheaded would nominate the next guy to get beheaded? Do you remember how ISIS were doing that?
Oh, vaguely.
Oh, so what they did was they had was it Foley? They had that Foley guy, and then in that video they were like, the next guy we're going to behead is, you know, some British guy, and then in the video of his beheading. Anyway, the point of my story is this stuff is so obviously TV show nonsense. This was back when they were doing those beheadings. They were even scripting them like TV shows. That's how dumbed down people are. They believe this crap. Then you got things like Cassidy Stay. You've got the plane disappearances. There was another one of those a few months ago. So you've got all these baby hoaxes. But ultimately, what difference do they make? Like, what do they really tell you? They tell you that the media can lie about specific events, right? Then if you get a little bit smarter, you can move on to slightly higher level hoaxes, right? Like Osama bin Laden. It's not simply that they lied about the 19 hijackers. It's that this Osama bin Laden guy was a fake boogeyman. He had been a fake boogeyman for a long time. You start to understand it's not simply about the media lying about one event. It's about a broader narrative that they can build, that they can lie about, right? Same with the Apollo missions. It's until you understand they lied about the moon landings, you don't understand anything. And most of the people who understand about the baby hoaxes, most of them, at least up until this whole flat Earth thing got big, they would have still believed the Apollo missions were real. Like, say, Jeffrey back in the day, old Jeff C., he used to equivocate and obfuscate on the issue of the Apollo missions, right? The furthest he would go was the baby hoaxes. Now, 12, 18 months on...
Yeah.
No, I think he's still... I think he still defends the Apollo missions. Last I heard, he was still... In fact, the last I heard was maybe a month or so ago, and he said that, they might have faked the first mission. They might have recorded it in a soundstage, but the other 5 that got to the moon, they didn't fake those. So, I mean, basically Alex Jones, man. Basically. You see what I'm saying?
People died, man.
Oh, my heart goes out to the families of the poor Taiwanese people who've been affected by this horrible, horrible tragedy. My heart goes out to the families. Yeah, give me a break. So you've got your toddler hoaxes there, right? But even if you understand the Apollo missions were fake, what difference does that make if you still trust the rest of what NASA does? You see? Like, if they could lie about the moon landings and get away with it, then doesn't it stand to reason they could be lying about the International Space Station? Of course they could be. So that deserves further investigation. Say with Osama bin Laden, okay, you find out that he's a fake boogeyman. There was none of this people in a cave plotting to take down the towers. Big deal if you haven't worked out that there were no planes on 9/11, right? What does it matter if you know that the official story is fake, if you still think that it was the Israeli government or that it was the American government or the Saudis? If you still think something happened, you still haven't got it yet, right? And so each
Well,
way
you
up
know,
this.
that no planes thing. I was at work at the mechanic place, and we had to do a fire course, and there was 20 of us sitting around like an oval business table, and the fire chief guy said something about it was about 9/11, whatever, and I said there's no planes at 9/11, and man, I managed to hold my ground. And I just explained the whole situation to them. I said, just don't worry about it. There's no planes. And no one said boo. They were like, oh, shit, really? Didn't know
None
that.
of them even asked any questions or anything like that?
Oh, man, it was glorious. And then I stayed chatting to the fire chief guy, and he took out his diary and scribbled in watch Simon Shack September clues in these to-do list.
Have you spoken to him since he wrote that down? Like, has he gone and watched it?
No, he just packed up his truck with all his display shit, because we were like throwing blankets over stuff and throwing oil on water on oil fires and all that bullshit. And he drove off, but he was a cool guy.
It'd be a cool thing if you could get people to realise, people who were oblivious to it beforehand, that there were no planes on 9/11. Like, that would be a cool thing. But it would take for them to go and to watch something like September Clues and to truly have an open mind. And how many people have open minds these days, really?
Oh, well, you got to just get them on their way. Hey, I think you should swap Hoax with Apollo missions. I think you might be tipping your hat to Tel Aviv there. I don't think Hoax deserves to be up that high, or maybe it does. But tell me.
Oh, I'm definitely open to constructive criticism here, dude. So please don't hold back here. Yeah, you have to understand though, this is an older one. I've got a new one, but how do I put this? I haven't had. If I had like 5 minutes, I could go and scrub out the top 3 levels. Because the thing is, I don't want to release too much of the higher levels of the hoax hierarchy, because it's very clear to me the vast majority of people involved in this scene, they're not ready to learn about the higher levels of the hoax. They still haven't really worked out the bottom levels yet. You know what I mean? It's kind of, what's the point of releasing too much information?
You've got your Masonic pyramid here, and you've got the hoax hierarchy, which is the 88, isn't it? The Heil Hitler is Russian vids always says. So maybe
Yep,
we're
yep.
you and me are part of some limited hangout, perhaps.
Look, you are right. There is a triangle there, and I use triangles a lot because I think a lot of what happens in just social dynamics is hierarchical in a pyramidal structure in a sense. So it's kind of hard to avoid the pyramid. And then with hoax hierarchy, I just love the alliteration. I think alliteration is so powerful when you're trying to get people to remember things that you're saying. So if you can think of another alliterated title that doesn't involve H, I'll go with it. But I think hoax hierarchy suits really well. And what was funny with this hoax hierarchy thing was I released this maybe 5 months ago, maybe in January. I released a video on the hoax hierarchy on my backup channel. I only got like, I don't know, 800 views. And I heard Jeffrey and Pressipoo both using the term over and over. So when you can get an idea out there and the people who are attacking you use your own terminology, it's a huge tactical win. So I'm pretty keen to stick with hoax hierarchy, to be honest. Now, as for the Apollo missions and the holohoax, the thing with the holohoax is once you understand that they can and do lie, not just about deaths, but about millions of deaths, and once you understand that there are people who are happy to go along with a lie and not speak out against it because people of their religion or their ethnicity happen to be the ones profiting from it. Like, there's a few big realizations that come from learning about the holohoax, and then also the laws that are allegedly in place in Europe to stop people from talking about this. Like, there's there's several aspects of the whole hoax that I think make it a bigger, more important hoax. And for a lot of people, harder to believe, man. Like, if the average person, okay, they lied about going to the moon, that's a big deal because it was a great achievement and blah blah blah. But you know, no one really gets hurt. But the idea that they can and did lie about 6 million, most people can't accept they would lie about one death. So the idea they would lie about 6 million, that's a big deal for most people, man. 6 million. And then you look at people like Steven Spielberg, man. He won that Academy Award for the supposed documentary The Last Days. Well, it's been documented that the actors, and they're just actors in his so-called documentary, it's been documented that they're on camera telling completely different stories in the so-called documentary to what they told in their pre-documentary recordings. So, like, they've been caught lying. Like that Irene Zisblatt, I think in the pre-documentary recording, she's like, oh, they said that if we tried to escape, they'd kill 5 of us. And then in the documentary, the Academy Award-winning documentary, it's, oh, they said that if we tried to escape, they'd kill 100 of us. And it's like, wait, so you've just multiplied, you've just exaggerated by a factor of 20, right? And this is in a documentary that won an Academy Award. I think the Holohoax, if you can get people to see that scum like Spielberg not only lie about it, but win Academy Awards from it, that can really make them question the entire entertainment industry and who's behind it and what they're doing with it, if that makes sense. So, look, I can see what you mean. The Apollo missions is probably deserves to be higher than Todd level, but I don't know, deserves a rejigging. What else do you reckon? What else would you put in there?
No,
other...
I don't have anything to say about that. I think it's a good picture and a good name.
Yeah,
I've got
I'm pretty
nothing
happy
constructive to add to this.
Well, I can tell you, I'll
Hoax
give you and all the listeners right now the hot tip. I've had to add another level because since I first formulated this, I've learned more things. Like there's a couple other hoaxes that I've learned about. So I kind of had to restructure the whole thing. But I'll be releasing more about the hoax hierarchy soon. But look, until people understand there were no planes on 9/11, until they understand NASA fakery and the Holohoax, they're not really ready for these next level of hoaxes anyway. So hopefully between now and then people can sort of themselves. So,
I imagine dinosaurs and evolution might be part of the green level, right?
Yeah, they are definitely in the next level or 2 above those ones, definitely. But you know, it's funny, when I first learned about the evolution hoax and the dino fraud, as I call it, I thought, man, this is huge. Like, it can't get much bigger than this. But in studying the history of dinosaurs, like going right back to the start, studying the official textbooks of dinosaurs, studying the official story of evolution, you quickly start to realize that even though they are massive frauds and they're very significant ones, like with profound impacts, there's something much deeper that allows those frauds to be perpetuated. And so even the daddy hoaxes, man, even the daddy hoaxes, they're not, how do I put this? They're significant. Like every level on this hoax hierarchy is important at first, but once you move on to the next level, the level behind you becomes like child's play, and that's what happens, man. Even with things like evolution and the dinosaurs, as fascinating as they are, once you move on to the next level, even they're like child's play. It's really is a fascinating progression.
This is like some big dubstep drop, you know. What's on top of the pyramid? Fuck's sake.
Yeah, well, I can show you my little working model for the hoax hierarchy off the air. But just while we're public, while we've got 50 listeners, they can wait on the edge of their seats for another few months while I get everything prepared. But I can tell you this: each of the little hoaxes that I'm going to be talking about one by one, each one will be accompanied by so much information that no one who takes the time to read the information for themselves can walk away with any conclusion other than, wow, that really was a hoax. And that's going to be one of my aims going forward, is releasing less videos, but it's slightly more dense content, if that makes sense. And what happens when you do that is that, like, if you release a 10-minute video that involves like 10 or 15 references, you can guarantee that 90% of the viewers won't even bother checking your references, like as a bare minimum. Like you're lucky if even a couple of % check the references. But what I'm hoping to do is make it so that that small percentage of people who bother to do their own research, they've got everything that they need to know for certain they're dealing with a hoax. Do you know what I mean? And that's really what I'm trying to do now with my channel a bit more, is just sort of just target those people who do their own research, because the people who just watch this crap for something to watch, there's no hope for those people, in my opinion, Sam. Like, what can you hope to get through these
well,
people?
they get to learn. I get to learn by watching other people's videos, and I meant to mention earlier, it would have been great for us to say, suggest that if anyone wanted to throw in any of this Orlando stuff they've found out while we've been talking, throw it in the chat. But I guess the chat's kind of, it's a bit late to do that. But if anyone's found out anything really interesting, like throw it in, throw a link in or something like that.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking, mate, is it's 20 past 12. We'll probably wrap it up in the next 10 minutes. But if anyone can throw anything into the chat they want us to discuss, we can definitely do that. And yeah, it's funny, isn't it, mate? We started off talking about the fake shooting in Florida, and next thing you know, we're talking about the hoax hierarchy and all of the much bigger hoaxes. So I don't know, maybe there is hope. Maybe people who click on this video wanting to learn about the baby hoax of the Florida gay club shooting, if this has encouraged them to listen to or consider some of the higher level hoaxes, then maybe some good will come of it.
Well, I don't know about a lot of those other things you put in there. Actually, I know about the Bin Laden one and the Holler hoax, but I don't know much about the NASA one. I mean, I do and I don't. I certainly don't know bugger all about dinosaurs and evolution, that's for sure.
Well, all right then. So just quickly on evolution, have you heard of the out of Africa theory?
No.
So the official story being taught to say biology and other science students at school and universities right now is that all humans descended from a common ancestor in Africa, right? And I remember hearing about this in university as well. In fact, when I was in Africa on exchange, we went to a museum, give me a break, and we got to learn about all of this really in depth. It was fascinating. Anyway, I looked into where this out of Africa theory came from, and I'll make a video about this, eventually. But long story short, the out of Africa theory originated in terms of like wider publication with a journal article in Nature Journal, which is like one of the biggest science journals you can be published in. And that sort of article, that study, it was based on, I think, about a sample size of about 150 people, I think. And what they'd done is they looked at the mitochondrial DNA of 150 mothers from their placentas or from their sort of their body wastes from giving birth. Anyway, the point of the story is they determined using their special DNA techniques that you and me and everybody listening to this podcast right now originated from a common ancestor in Africa, from a sample size of 150 people. But here's the best part. They took samples from people all over the world. So there were people from Papua New Guinea, people from, say, Europe and the US or what have you. And they also took DNA from African Americans. They didn't actually take any DNA from any actual Africans. And anyone who's looked into this knows that African Americans, they're not like a pure ethnicity or racial type, what have you. They're very interbred African Americans. That's why they look so different to people from Africa, because even though their ancestry might be from Africa or their heritage might be, they've been so heavily interbred, they're not the same as Africans, right? But the people in the sample that were supposedly like the highest level of the mitochondrial DNA that all the others were subordinate to, like in their little tree that they put together, they weren't even African, they were African Americans. But they used that study, this is back in like 1985, 86, 87. This is all off the top of my head, by the way. It was months ago I looked into all of this, and I'm pretty confident in what I'm saying here. Basically, they used a sample of 150 people 30 years ago to tell us all that we all came from Africa, when nobody in the study came from Africa. Now, how fucked up is that? Now, if you bring this up with a biology student or someone else, they'll say, oh, yeah, but that was just the first study that got published, and there's other things that prove it now, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine. Just let's talk about this one study. Do you believe a study with a sample size of 150 people with no Africans could ever be used by any sensible person to prove that anyone came from Africa. That's all we need to establish here. And of course, their answer will be yes, because they believe in science dogmatically. It's a religious faith, you see. And once you understand you're dealing with someone who has a faith in what they're being told, there's no rational discussion to be had. No sane person believes that that study, if it is as I've represented it, and it is, no sane person could possibly believe that proves that we came from anywhere. And that's all you need to know. The people who push crap like out of Africa theory believe stuff that's as insane as what I just told you. Now, Sam, if you looked into that out of Africa theory and that Nature journal article, and you found out that it is as I've represented it, 150 people, no Africans, mitochondrial DNA from women around the world, proves that we all come from Africa, what would you say? If what I just said is true, that I've represented their study the way that they published it, what would you say?
Well, it's a shitload of inbreeding, isn't it, to begin with? For us to start with such a small pool of people, we see what happens to people when they, you know, have children with people who are too closely related to them, like with the royal family, and I think Jewish people sort of possibly suffer from some health effects from maybe not reaching out far enough from their group. And then there's some people who, you know, live in small populated towns, perhaps, who might have the same thing. How did the human race evolve rather than devolve if it started off from a point of extreme inbreeding? I mean, if there was 4 people having sex in the first place, imagine how exponentially more intelligent we'd be if there was 8. You know, we're lucky we're even here by the sound of things.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about kind of goes to a broader point about how evolution doesn't really make sense, and I agree with you about that. I mean, think about it this way. Suppose a species evolves into another species, which, by the way, has never been documented, and it's never happened. We've never seen it happen. It's never been shown to happen, not even close, right? Like the idea of macroevolution. It's never happened, and it never will happen. But just pretend that it did happen. You would need one subject from one species to accidentally become another of the, like a new version of the next species. And then how does that one go about turning the rest into a species just like it? Do you know what I mean? Like, do people ever actually sit down and think about this, like, logically? And then think about things like, we're told that human evolution, one of the reasons why they remove people's wisdom teeth so much, even when there's nothing wrong with their wisdom teeth, is, oh, well, you know, because of evolution, our jaws now are too small for all the teeth, and so we need to stop the cramping. It's like, hold on a second, isn't evolution meant to be about natural selection and like the selection of things that are better for us? How the hell is it a genetic advantage to have jaws that are too small for the number of teeth? Like, it's just that once you actually start sitting down and thinking about this stuff logically, it is utterly ridiculous. And that's what I'm saying here. You don't, when you bring that up with a biology student, don't let them then go, oh, but we've got these other studies and blah, blah. It's like, we can talk about the other studies in a moment. Once we establish that you're basing your beliefs on studies, let's start with this one. Do you believe this study could possibly be legitimate, could possibly prove what it purports to prove? Yes or no? Simple question. And when they say yes, and from my experience, they usually do, that's it. That's it. We're not dealing with evidence-based belief systems. We're dealing with faith. And anyone who argues with someone who has faith, they're wasting their time.
Yeah, hey, why do you reckon they avoided using the Africans in the experiment?
That's a good question, and I've probably still got the actual article itself lying around here somewhere. So if we had more time, I could probably look up to see if it's in their methodology or whatever. But what they did was they're using mitochondrial DNA, which sounds really complicated, but basically the idea is that mitochondrial DNA is passed down from the mum to the children, right? If you create a child with a woman, that child is going to get the mum's mitochondrial DNA, which is just a certain part of the DNA that's passed on, right? There's a couple of types of DNA that you can have in your body, and one of them is mitochondrial. But what we're talking about here is simply like, and I'm not using technical terms here, but like genetic markers, okay? And they wanted to take these genetic markers from the mums of the samples, so they could try and trace it back as far as possible. And so what they did was they took, I'm pretty sure it was actually the placentas. I'm pretty sure they took the actual placentas from their the subjects to take the DNA from the placentas, right? And so they could only take these samples from women who gave birth in hospitals. So they actually went to hospitals to collect the DNA samples. And so they said that they took, like, say, 10 samples from a hospital in Papua New Guinea. They took, say, 10 samples from a hospital in, say, for argument's sake, in Sydney, 10 from, say, in New York or what have you. And for whatever reason, they just didn't take any samples from any hospitals in Africa. Now, whether that was because they didn't feel it was necessary, or whether that was because they couldn't get access to an African hospital, off the top of my head, I can't remember if that was even mentioned in the article itself.
You're saying all these different people, they all boil down to one code according to these researchers?
Yeah, basically what they're saying is that here's what they did, right? They took all of these they took all of these samples, and you can use, I suppose, sophisticated computer technology to take these samples and come up with, like, a DNA sequence, if you like, right? And then what they do is they take all of these sequences, and again, I'm not using the technical, I'm not using these terms in the technical sense necessarily. I'm using these just to generally explain the concepts here. So any of you biology majors, don't come after me, okay? Just leave your opprobrium for a moment. Just explain it in broad terms. So they take all of these sequences and they find patterns amongst them. And then what they do is they use a computer to come up with what the computer thinks is the most parsimonious, or the best fit. If you had to force these 150 samples into, like, a genetic tree, which would be the most appropriate tree, right? So you're basically saying to the computer, here's all the samples, try and come up with the best overall tree that you can based on this. And when it does that, the only group that didn't descend from any of the other groups was the African American group. So they say, well, that must be the top group, right? But even then, there were African American samples in the other group. Like, look, when I make this video, when you see it for yourself, you'll think there's no way JLB is being serious. He must be misrepresenting the study. There's no way they could be passing this off as proof that we all come from Africa. And hopefully people will be so angry at me for misrepresenting the study, they'll read the study themselves and their jaws will hit the floor. And they'll be like, holy crap, this is actually being passed off as science.
I was going to say that you can compare the I was going to say, why don't you compare this common code they found with the true African code? But if the way that they found the commonality between all the different races is flawed itself, then it's kind of like one layer of bullshit possibly sitting on another layer of bullshit. So your work's cut out for you there, John.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, mate, is once you look at science through the prism of, well, it could be real, it could be fake, let's study their actual papers, their journal articles, etc., you realize it is one level of bullshit piled on top of another, whether it's the dino fraud, whether it's evolution, whether it's heliocentrism, all of these things, if you just take the time to look into it and apply your own common sense. And sometimes it does take hours and hours of research, and I understand a lot of people, that's too much research, but like they don't feel like they've got the time, or they don't feel confident enough to I mean, most people don't even know how to find journal articles. You know what I mean? They haven't been trained in how to do it. I understand all of that. But for the people who do have the time, they do have the inclination, and they do have the basic skills necessary to look into and investigate science, it doesn't take long for the whole thing to crumble before you realize you're simply dealing with a slightly more sophisticated religion, slightly more sophisticated than the older religions. You know what I mean? They've got more fancy words, and they've got a better ability to make it look like what they're doing is based on sort of rational deduction. But ultimately, it's all hocus pocus. Evolution, the dino fraud, heliocentrism, it's all nonsense. And here's where it's really clever. What the lie system has managed to do is that with all of these lies, they've already got their controlled opposition either lined up and ready to go, or in operation. So someone realizes that evolution is nonsense, and it's like, well, now you've got to go and join one of the kooky religions, don't you? One of the crazy groups who want 10% of your money and tell you that there's heaven and hell. Oh, what's that? You've learned that dinosaurs are fake. Now you can go and join one of those kooky groups who think that dinosaurs existed 6,000 years ago. When no, there were none. It's all a make-believe fiction from 160 years ago, right? Or, oh, you've learned that heliocentrism is a lie and based on complete hocus pocus? Well, now go and join those crazy flat earthers and their cat ladies and their love and peace hangouts with people sitting around smoking tobacco and telling you how they're going to take down NASA, right? With all of these lies, they've got the controlled opposition. Whether the controlled opposition knows that they're controlled or they're just useful idiots, doesn't make a difference. They've got the false dichotomy ready for you, waiting to go. So the number of people who've woken up to these kinds of lies, but then haven't gotten sucked into another lie, man, you might be talking to the only guy on the planet who fits that bill. Most people get sucked up in lies, and then when they get out of the lie, they just get sucked into a whole nother lie. They're stupid. They're stupid. People are stupid now.
Damn. Well, I'd contribute more if I had it, but I don't know anything about with biology, so I apologise for that, but I just don't.
Yeah, plus it's 20 to 1.
Yeah, I hear what you say.
20 to 1 on a Monday morning, on a Sunday night. Probably not the best time to talk about this kind of stuff, mate. And speaking of that, it probably is time for us to wrap this one up. It's gone a bit longer than I planned, actually, over an hour and a half, Sam. So what we might do is, if you're cool with that, we might give our final thoughts, maybe read a couple comments from the chat, and then wrap this one up. What do you reckon?
I don't have any final thoughts. I'm all out of ideas, but I wish I had been following the chat. I just didn't know how to work this screen.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. Well, I'll tell you what, we told the audience at the start we're going to try and determine whether or not the Florida gay club shooting was a hoax or real. So without having to put any money on the line, at this point in time, how confident are you that this one was a phony fake show?
It's a fucking phony fake show.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident of that one as well. And do you have any, if you don't have any final thoughts, any final parting piece of advice, just in case this one does get new viewers who aren't familiar with media fakery and genuine skepticism of what we're told, any pieces of advice that you'd give them when they're starting out on their journey of deprogramming?
I don't know, take it easy. Don't dive so hard into the stuff that you fuck up the rest of your life. Because the funny thing is, when you talk to like baby boomers and stuff that reckon that they almost wrote the narrative that we live in, you know, kind of smug like that. And you try to wake them up towards the end of their life, they're fucked if they're going to let you tell them that their whole life's been a lie so close to the end. But they should be reassured by the fact that even if they were 20 years old, there's probably not a damn thing they can do about it anyway. So, yeah, that's about it. I play a bit of music, and I must say, since I've worked out some of this stuff, and I could be completely deluded, but since I think I worked out some of this stuff, it's kind of made me have to reframe the whole what type of songs and stuff I'm even going to write about. Like, because it also presented a crap load of new material that you could write about, but it can't just be like, you know, some song about, you know, screw the Masons and a bit of his shit. It's got to hit that same esoteric level, but you're just swimming in a pool of shit. So I need to find some anchor point. Could be Jesus Christ, for all I know. I'm not quite sure. It'll be interesting when it happens. That's all I've got to say, John.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. If you have any kind of creative outlet or talents, when you learn about some of this stuff, you know, it can change the direction that you're going with those talents. And so if someone were a songwriter or a musician of any kind, there's no way that the music that they write about before they learn could possibly be the same as what they write about after they learn. And I'm planning to come down to Sydney in the not too distant future, Sam, and maybe you and I can jam a little bit and maybe put together a song for the audience. What do you reckon? We might even do one about the Florida gay club shooting, the introduction hoax for any newbies out there who wanted to look up Florida gay club shooting, and this video just happened to pop up on their YouTube feed, and now they realize that there were no dinosaurs, they don't live on a giant spinning ball, and they didn't evolve from slime. They're actually here for a reason. They're special. This whole existence is special. The people who tell you otherwise are taking advantage of you, and you can do a lot better than working, buying crap you don't need, and dying an empty death, having led an empty life. There's much better for you. So thank you, Sam, for joining us. Make sure you stick around. I'll press stop broadcast. We'll have a quick chat before we wrap it all up. And in the live chat, Nom 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 says, when they bring out all of the elders in the multicultural costumes, like at the press conference right now, it's fake. There you go, Sam. They're starting to wheel out the multicults. How do you like that? So the Latino and the gay agenda all wrapped up into one. And anyhow, it is time to wrap this one up. So on the 12th and the 13th of June, has ticked over into the Monday morning here in Australia. It is time to say goodbye. So thanks for joining us. Thank you again, Sam, for being part of it. And we'll see all of you guys at the next phony fake show event. Until then, take care of yourselves.